being here on the podcast. Today is August the 3rd. It is Wednesday. This week has been flying by. For those who watch the days, I mean, to me, sometimes I feel like every day is Monday. But I mean, that's just normal for me. That's my normal thing. So whatever is normal for you is your norm. But again, um, I say I appreciate you always, like always. That will never change. So if you ever don't receive no type of appreciation through the day, you can always come on here at 7:30 in the morning. And I'm gonna show you appreciation just for saying thank you and just for being here as well. All right. So how has your week been though thus far? You know, that is a real question. It's not just something for you to watch and to listen to. So that is a real question for you. How has your week been so far? Have you learned anything about yourself? Have you learned something through the process of the things that you have done? So again, that's a realistic question. So you can answer that. But again, I pray that your week have been successful thus far. And today we're going to be talking about Through the Valley. So I was listening. I'm not gonna lie, transparent moment. I'm sitting here like, what in the world am I gonna talk about today? It's kind of like a series of what the other two podcasts was about this week, and I think it fits in good line with what we have been communicating about before. Because yesterday was good. Yesterday was a real powerful lesson. So if you didn't hear yesterday's conversation, you didn't hear yesterday's podcast, I definitely think you should check that out. So you know what I'm gonna do for you? I'm gonna put the link inside the chat just for those that are here. It's called Take Away the Option. So let me go ahead and drop that right now inside the chat for those who didn't hear it yesterday. So all right, there's a link, and I say click that link and listen to it today. Can't listen to it now; it makes zero sense. But you can listen to it throughout the day and go from there. All right, so today is Through the Storm. Because if you take an option away, that means you may have found yourself within that valley, and now you're taking the option away in order for you to grow and to move and expand outside of where you presently and currently are. So that's where we're going to be talking about in today's message. And again, like always, the things that resonate with you, go ahead and put that information down there in the chat, because the people that are watching it watching it on a replay, they could be able to communicate and see what you say. Like, oh man, I didn't think of it from that perspective. That makes a lot of sense. So go ahead, the things that hit you, go ahead and put it in the comment. And what happens when you communicate in the comment section? It actually adds to the algorithm in it, and it raises the live itself much higher on your news feed. So just go ahead and make sure you share this live. So if you're going to watch me like show and tell and don't say anything, just go ahead and share it and put it inside a group, and I will take the energy to the group with that. So, all right, peace. Good morning, Antoinette. All right, so let's go ahead and jump 2 feet deep into this. Today is good, like always, for me. So Through the Valley. So you're going to learn definitions, and the etymology of it wasn't too strong, so I didn't add that. But I found 3 different definitions of valley. So I want you to pay attention as well. What are the commonalities between each of the definition? And then I'm going to show you that it's really how you see it through the valley. All right. So the definition of valley, it is said it is a low area of land between hills and mountains, typically with a river or stream flowing through it. Right? It says a low area of land between hills and mountains, typically with a river or a stream flowing through it. So the inversion on this is white over red, which is a low area of. So what am I communicating to you about? It is a low area of whatever it is that you add to the end of it. It could be a low area of finances, a low area of emotions, a low area of love, a low area of whatever it is, and whatever you put after the word of is how you define it and how you see it from your perspective. So now let's go with the second definition. It is said that a valley is an elongated, long area often running between hills and mountains, which will typically contain a river or stream running from one end to the other. Now, the inversion on this is red over white. It says a valley is an elongated low area. It typically contains a river or stream running from one end to the other. So a valley is an elongated low area. That means it's not always going to be that short situation that you may find yourself in. It may be an elongated area. It may take a while. It may be a place that you may find yourself that is longer than a week, that is longer than a month, that's longer than 6 months, that's longer than 9 months, that's longer than a year. Because the valley is the elongated low area, typically containing a river or stream running from one end to the other. Again, pay attention to the definition. And the third definition of valley, it says an elongated depression of the Earth's surface, usually between ranges of hills or mountains, an area drained by a river and its tributaries. Tributaries is rivers that flow into a big lake. So now the inversion is white over red. I'm sorry, red over white. So it says an elongated depression, an area drained by a river. So an elongated depression, that means the moment that you feel that emotion that comes over you that begins to push you down, that could be an elongated process. And an area drained by a river, that means you've poured so much out that you have nothing left. Or you have been crying or sobbing for so long, you felt that you have drained everything that you had in you out, and you found yourself to be in elongated depression. That is your valley. So now I want you to pay attention to something. If you haven't thus far, if you have, go ahead and put down in the chat, what are the common things that you've seen? These are all three different definitions, but there are some common things in the definition. There are two common things, well, three, that I want you to pay attention to. And the only reason why you would pay attention to it is because you have possibly been in a valley, or you have been listening and it has been resonating with you to the point to where you have created some sort of aha moment for yourself. So if you haven't saw it, I'm gonna put something on you today. All right, bet. So let's look at it. This one, it says an elongated depression. It says between ranges, hills, or mountains. And it said an area drained by a river and its tributaries. This one says a valley of elongated low area, typically between hills, mountains, in which typically contains a river or stream running from one end to the other. This one says a low area of land between hills, mountains, typically with a river or stream flowing through it. So now I want you to pay attention to something. Your valley is your perspective. Now, I'm just giving you definition from what is coming out of dictionaries, but I want you to look at how you look at your valley. It is your perspective of how you see your valley, because every last one of these definitions have had mountains and hilltops. So you're always going to have your high points. You're always going to have you're always going to be in a position to where things are going so good for you, or they're going so great that you feel so high up into the clouds and you want to jump around and laugh and be joyous and all that stuff because you're at your highest heights. You're at those high moments, at those high peaks, the mountaintops, the hills, the rolling hills. But there's going to be a time in your life where the area is going to be low. It's perspective. There is going to be a time in your life where your area is going to feel like it's lasting forever. The elongated low areas in your life. There's going to be a time in your life when you feel like the low areas have begun to push me down so much that I am in a state of depression. And it is not just a normal depression. I've been depressed before, but this seems like this an elongated depression. Again, I'm showing you 3 different definitions, but all of them are dealing with perspectives. Everyone who, the person who wrote the definition wrote it from their perspective. Because this said an elongated depression. This says a valley with an elongated low area. This just says it's a low area. So how do you perceive, or how have your perspective been on the valley that you have found yourself in? Because all of them is going to tell you that there are going to be high days and there's going to be days where you are at the apex. You're at the top of your game. But when you're in that low area is how you see it. But the thing that has always been there, it has been constantly and consistent throughout the entire 3 definition. There has always been rivers that have always been there for you. But have you begin to look at those rivers and understand that what happens on the rivers is what I do, and what am I doing when I'm at the river? Well, let's take this quick deep dive. I've given you 3 definitions. I've shown you 3 different definitions. I've shown you 3 ways that you have the ability to look at your perspective when you're in the valley. One is going to tell you it's just a low area. That's when you telling yourself, I'm cool, I got it. I'm all right. I'm feeling okay. I'm just in this low area right now. I'm just in this low funk. I'm chilling. I'm all right. And then the next time it's going to tell you that, man, this valley feels elongated. Like, man, what in the world? This feeling seems like it's lasting forever. I don't know what is going on. I remember when I never felt this way. I was at my strongest point. I was at the top of my game. I was at the top of this mountain. I was at the top of the hill, and I felt so good. Now this low area just seems like it's lasting forever. Man, I'm feeling real depressed right now. It feels like this weight, I've never felt this type of weight before. And it's weighing in on everything that I do. It's weighing in on where I go. It's weighing in on the things that I say. I'm projecting my energy onto someone else because the depression that I found myself into seems like it is elongated, and it is harder for me to get this monkey off my back because I've never felt this way before. Now, you will have high days. You will have those mountaintops. You will be able to look at your peak and look down in the valley. And you have the ability to tell yourself, man, I know what that feels like. You are able to see someone else when they're in a slump, or someone else when they're in their valley. And when you're on your mountaintop and your peak, you'd be like, I know what that feels like. Come here, let's talk. The valley is a rough place. But also, the valley is your perspective. The depression is your perspective. How much are you willing to carry before you understand that I don't have to carry it anymore? How much are you willing to deal with before you acknowledge that this doesn't have to be elongated? It really don't. My perspective of an elongated depression is how long am I willing to carry it? My perspective of an elongated low area is my perspective because how long am I willing to go through this? My perspective of in a low area, how long am I willing to stay in this low area before I get myself up out of this low area and recognize that I see the hilltop. So now, because I can see the hilltop, that means the hill is that much easier for me to deal with because I see the goal that I have set for myself. These are all three different perspectives. The low area, the I'm cool, I got it. The other low area, the elongated low area, like, man, it feel like this is lasting forever. Then you get to that point to where you haven't recognized that there was hilltops always around you. So therefore you didn't put your boots on. You wasn't ready to go ahead and climb that hill to get yourself to the top of the hill, to get yourself to the top of the mountain. Put your boots on and lace it up tight, because if you're ready to get out of the valley, you have to understand it's going to take work. It's going to take work. Some of you got worked on so much that the work pushed you down and it beat you up so much that you began to develop fear in the valley. And the fear in the valley has caused you not to recognize that the hills and the mountains and the hilltops are achievable because of the fear that you faced in the valley. So let's go ahead and tap into this. I'm going to tell you right now, there is purpose in the valley. Right? The valley becomes your redefining moment. It gives purpose to the mountaintop. When you look up there, you say, you know what? I see it. I see it so clearly, but I need to get myself up there. I need to get myself back there. Or I see another mountain that's within reach. I'm going to go to that mountain because this mountain right here, I don't think that's my mountain. That's not the mountain for me to climb, because it said hills, that's more than one. Mountains, that can be more than two. That's when you recognize that this not my mountain, so I don't have to climb up that mountain. That mountain right there, that's the mountain I'm going to go after, because that's the direction I know that I need to go. That's purpose in the valley. And it also will give purpose to the erosion, because within the valleys between the two hills, there's an erosion. There is an erosion that goes on, and it's going to give purpose to that erosion. And the next thing, and I want you to understand that there are resources in the valley. Did y'all pay attention to the resources? Did you recognize the resources? If not, I'm going to tell you where it was. So if you noticed, every definition had one common defining thing: rivers. Every last definition had one common defining moment, that there were rivers. What does rivers mean? That means there is life in the valley. Because where there are rivers, there's what? Fish, food, resources. You can, if you in that MacGyver type of mindset, just like water, if you put some sort of energized or some sort of machine with a conductor, and because of the flow of the river, it can create electricity. So there are resources in the valley, but you have to pay attention to the resources in the valley, because you are so fixated on what type of low area that you're in, what type of elongated low area that you're in, or what type of elongated depression that you're in, that you haven't begun to notice the natural resources that have always been there, because you have been focusing on the wrong thing. There are resources. At the river, there's food. At the river, there's fruit. At the river, there's fish. At the river, there is a place for you to change your perspective, because you can be within the midst of the storm, but understand that the storm is not there to take your boat and to take you out of it. Acknowledge the resources that are always there. Acknowledge that person that always been trying to communicate with you, to tell you, like, man, yo, I've been there before. Come on, let's sit down. Let's talk about this. I want you to be at peace. Because also in the valley could be a place of perfect peace, because if there's purpose in the valley, then you have to understand that there's lessons in the valley. Because remember, it says, again, consistently, it says within the valley, there were hills, hilltops, mountains. That means that there is a trail to get that you can find to get yourself back to that hill. And on that trail are your lessons, right? Because sometimes the shadows in your life is evidence that you are still alive. Because if it was not a shadow, then how would you know that there is a light that you can actually see and get to? Because the light lets you know that it is not always going to be dark, because I see the shadow and I can see myself. And because I can see myself, I'm learning the lessons when I'm in that valley. So what lessons have you learned when you have found yourself in your valley? Because remember, valley is perspectives. It's perspectives. Remember that. Your valley is your perspective. You don't have to be depressed. That is a moment. It doesn't have to be elongated. That is a moment. It does not have to be a low area. You can look at it as a position and then begin the process of repositioning yourself. Pay attention to what you already have and stop looking at what others have and wishing you had that, because they have probably already been in the valley, got out of the valley, and can give you foresight on the process or the possibilities of you getting out of that funk, or the process or the possibilities of you shortening the elongated process that you have found yourself in. And I'm gonna teach you something real quick. And it was like an aha moment for me, and it was so dope how it came out. So it's a play on lettering, but the words are true in itself. Because every valley has a trail, right? Listen to it. Every valley has a trail. Every valley has a trail. Every valley has trials. Trails and trials are spelled very similar, but it is a simple inversion of letters. Because you have trail, Trail, and you have trials, Trial. So which one have you recognized? The trail can lead you out of your elongated depression. A trail, just like the trail can lead you into it, that same trail that you found yourself in that deep depression, or that same trail that you found you've walked into that elongated low area, is the same trail that you can walk your tail up out of that. Because the trials happen on the trail. Because you can see, because of the shadow, you can see the light to the end of your of the depression, or you can see the way that you're going, because the destiny is walking towards the light. Because if I am envisioning where I'm going, then I know that I have already been there, because I've seen what it looked like. And remember that when you pay attention to the lessons in the valley, you have to be willing to listen, and you have to be willing to learn that those lessons can actually create your what's next. And there is a process that you're going to have to understand too. I mean, we spoke about it a little bit, but I want you to pay attention to it too. You probably paid attention to it, but probably most of y'all didn't. So the valley changes things, even in the natural state. Because in the natural state of natural law, there is an erosion that takes place within the valley naturally, because that's where the water, the lifeline, begins to become widened as the flow of water began to blaze its trail, and the erosion began to separate the land mass within itself. Now, it is an elongated process of time, but there is a natural erosion that takes place. So there is a natural separation between your trials and your trail. It's natural. There's a natural erosion. So there's going to be a change. The change comes when you acknowledge the lessons that you learn. The change comes when you understand that it does not have to be elongated anymore. The change comes when you recognize there were always resources for you to begin with, but you wanted to put your head down and not pay attention to the resources, not pay attention to the lessons. So therefore, you have found yourself in a slump so deep that you call it a depression. But when you begin to look at the trail that can lead you out of it, there's always clues, because the way that you got into it is the same way that you can get yourself up, to present yourself the ultimate opportunity to get yourself out, to walk out of it. And the erosion is going to change things naturally. The erosion is going to change things. Through the valley. So whoever this was for, it's for you. If you don't grab a hold of it, I'm not worried about it. Because remember, valley is perspective. Whether you say you got it or you lying to yourself, that's up to you. Whether you say you found yourself in an elongated low area, that's up to you. Whether you say you found yourself in an elongated depression, that is your perspective. But the one thing that is constant and consistent is, no matter what your perspective is, there are resources for you. There's rivers of living water for you, but you just got to pay attention to it. There's lessons. You either can find the trail or learn from the trial. And because those trials and tribulations have put you in a position, or those trials and tribulations have been contributed to the slump or the depression that you found yourself in, acknowledge that there was purpose in the valley and get yourself up and be purposeful into finding that new trail that is going to get you to the mountain, because you've been to the mountain before, but you got so fixated on being up and looking down on everybody else that when you fell in that slump, you wanted somebody to return the favor, but you never gave the favor yourself. I'm gonna leave that alone. All right, man, y'all be blessed. Go ahead and put to the comment section the things that resonated with you the most. I'm at this point in my life. You either gonna do it or you're not. That's your valley. It's not mine. I can recognize when I'm in a valley because I can see the trail. I can identify it. It's not always going to be easy to identify the trail, just like it's not always going to be easy to blaze a trail, because you may have to create some new ones. That is what? The natural law of erosion. Maybe it's time for you to blaze a new trail. Maybe it's time for you to take those lessons that you learned and begin to create your own natural erosion, because there is a change that happens when you come out of that particular valley. If you go in the valley and you come out and there's no change, then I guarantee that you're going to carry that same trait to the next place that you go, and you're going to be that continued parasite no matter where you go, because you didn't pay attention to the resources that you had, and you didn't pay attention to the lessons that you learned. You didn't pay attention to the trials that you have gone through, because there are always going to be breadcrumbs for you to go back and say, you know what, I see it, I can identify it, I'm not going to be there anymore. And because I'm not going to be there anymore, I have to change my perspectives, because you don't always have it. Hey, y'all be blessed. And remember, consistency is currency. Peace.